everyone. This is Gilbert Gelato. I'm talking to you here from CPLSPA headquarters from downtown. This is Tufts on Tax, where all your tax law questions are answered right here. Any trouble you are having with taxes regarding lawsuits, trouble with employers, businesses, friends and family, even with the IRS, your peace of mind is right here with Mr. T. Scott Tufts. He is the expert and the master when it comes to taxes and tax laws. So if you want to call him, ask him any questions, you can call 877-647-7887. Again, that's 877-647-7887. It's going to be on the screen as well if you're watching us on YouTube. And you can go to our website, cplspa.com. If you want to go and answer any questions, and simply go to his email. Email him at stufts@cplspa.com. That's stufts@cplspa.com. Hello, Scott. How are you?
Hey, good to be with you.
Good to be with you, too. And we have a special episode today. We are interviewing attorney Evelyn Pabon Figueroa. She's an immigration attorney and also a bankruptcy attorney. And we're going to see, and you're going to ask her questions about the impact of taxes on her practice. So what type of questions, basically, we're going to discuss with her?
Looking forward to sitting down and talking to Evelyn. Get her a chance to show us kind of what she does and yet see how these taxes impact her. And I think our audience is going to enjoy it very much.
Absolutely. We are looking forward to it. And we'll be right back with Miss Pabon Figueroa.
All righty. We are back here on Tufts on Tax, and it's my honor to have with me today Evelyn and go ahead and give me your full name, Evelyn, please, for the audience.
Yes, Evelyn Pabon Figueroa.
All right, so Evelyn is somebody I wanted to talk to. She's been here at CPLSPA for quite some time. How long, Evelyn?
13 years.
Wow, so since I've gotten to know Evelyn coming here, she's just a refreshing and very high-quality attorney. And what we try and do in this segment is get to know you a little bit about what you do and see if taxes make their way into your practice, how they impact your practice, so that our audience can kind of get to see how taxes really touch everything in life. So with that being said, Evelyn, be so kind as to give them your background and how you decided to become a lawyer and then doing what you do.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. I've been a lawyer since 2005. I'm not one of those that always wanted to be a lawyer. I kind of got here by accident. When I decided that medical school was not for me, I decided to go to law school. I know it's not that exciting, but it worked out well for me. While in law school, I took a course on immigration law, and I just loved it. I knew that someday I wanted to do that, and when I started working here at CPLS in 2008, I was given that opportunity, and I've been doing it since, and I just, really enjoy it. I work with different type of individuals because I do family-based immigration, I do employment-based immigration, and I also do some removal defense. And I think one of the reasons I really love immigration is because it's very rewarding. When you actually win a case, your clients are so grateful. And it's also very humbling. It reminds me of how lucky I am that I did not have to go through the very long processes that they have to go to be here.
You mentioned removal defense. What is that?
So removal defense is when the government is trying to basically kick out someone from the U.S. And this is done to many people's surprise, is not just for people that are here without documents. The government can place someone that's a lawful permanent resident or what we normally call a green card holder. They can place them in removal proceedings, and they can be sent back to their country. So removal proceedings will get you, in the end, what the government wants is basically to deport the person.
Right. It could be all kinds of grounds, right? It could be conduct-based, or other things for the removal, or is it always paperwork from their home country, or what kinds of things come up?
So when someone is on removal proceedings. It can be for different reasons. Some of them is because they're here without documents, either because they entered without documents, without authorization, or because they entered with documents but then overstayed their stay. Sometimes it's because people get in trouble with criminal law, so if they have a conviction, or in some cases if there's a suspicion of commission of certain acts, they can end up in removal defense. Obviously more applicable to you if someone gets in trouble with the IRS because of some tax evasion or things like that, and they're kind of criminally prosecuted for that, they can obviously end up in removal proceedings.
So, Evelyn, one of the things that has come up in practice that is of interest to me is, we have these relationships where we talk a lot about employees, W-2 employees, and then we might talk about a 1099 contractor employee. If you make 600 or more, you might have to get a 1099 from someone who is under, in a contract with you and they pay you. But one of the things we hear in the public discussion is companies that need certain workers, and that the better workers, for whether it's affordable or cheaper labor, they'll go to undocumented workers, and they'll have a workforce that is folks who are maybe haven't gone through the immigration process. Can you talk a little bit about kind of how the system deals with that? Do you have any kind of comment on that, like what you've seen out there in terms of large-scale workforces being undocumented, or have you not seen that and it's been more on a one-on-one basis?
Personally, it's been more on a one-on-one basis that I've dealt with it. But in terms of being aware of it, I am aware that the government does go against companies that hire individuals that do not have authorization to work. And they can get fines. Sometimes it can turn into criminal prosecutions. It can end up being a very costly situation for them because it is a violation of immigration law to hire someone that doesn't have authorization to work. It's also a violation of immigration law for someone to work if they don't have authorization to work. So an employer is not supposed to hire someone that doesn't have authorization to work. Okay. Just like an employee, someone that doesn't have authorization to work is not supposed to work. Now, the reality is that we are aware that a lot of times, because they've been here for so long, they have no other option but to work.
So one of the forms that we talk about in our show here is we've got the W-9. And that's our kind of lead-in form that allows a person who you contract with to certify what their tax ID number is. And, this goes to corporations, LLCs, businesses, sole proprietors, but also your Social Security number. Presumably, an undocumented worker either has that ITIN number, that special number, because they cannot get a Social Security number, or not. So they might not be able to make that certification because they won't have a number. Have you seen that at all? In other words, I guess it's called an ITIN, or tell me a little bit about that.
It's very common for individuals that I've worked with to actually have an ITIN number, and they get it precisely in order for them to file their taxes, because at the end of the day, as you are aware, Uncle Sam doesn't care where the money comes from or whether you were authorized to work or not. If you made the money and you meet the requirements in terms of the amount of money that you made, you have to file the taxes. So,
when does that come up in the process? Dumb question. When do they get that ITIN in the process?
Normally they get that by the time they've come to me. A lot of them already have it. I don't get involved in them getting those numbers because, again, normally I do not advise my clients to work without authorization. So by the time they come to me, usually they already have that number.
And they'll tell you that number. They'll say, I've got my number and so forth, correct?
Yes, because they'll show me their tax returns that they filed under that number. Sure. So, to show that they've actually been filing. A lot of times they have they set up businesses, so they do the filing through the business.
See, that's awesome. And then at some point, if they get citizenship, they get the Social Security number. Then they get their own Social Security number at that point.
They get the Social Security number before that. So when you become a lawful permanent resident, you can get your Social Security then. You can also get it if you are authorized to work. So the Social Security Administration will give you, if you have employment authorization, will give you a Social Security number. However, that card does come with a little stamp that lets the employer know that you cannot work unless you have an employment authorization document. So that they can't just take the Social Security as evidence that you have authorization to work.
Right. So one of the things we, kind of wrap that segment up, we're talking a lot on this show about best practices, and what we try and get out in front of is it may not be required to give a W-9 up front, but if you do this on every occasion and without fail, then you as a business are not picking and choosing when you present this kind of request. You make it as a condition of entering into contracts with anybody, any entity, any party, and so we're trying to encourage that. I know you do more than immigration. Just touch quickly on that aspect. What other areas of law do you also work in?
I also do bankruptcy. I do mainly Chapter 7s and Chapter 13s, and kind of as a result of the immigration, because I've done employment-based immigration, and there's a lot of business formation and business-related stuff. I've also gotten involved with some business-related issues in terms of forming companies and helping people make sure that everything goes well. And again, that kind of came out of the whole immigration part, because I have to make sure that my immigration clients that are opening a business here, that business is properly set up.
Yeah, one of the things in bankruptcy we talk about is trust fund taxes, the obligation for payroll, folks who, in order to pay their workers if they have a business, that if they're responsible for signing checks and in a position of cutting the payroll checks, if you will, or be responsible for finances, then they can be responsible for the payroll taxes if they're not paid over to the government, and you cannot discharge them in bankruptcy. So one of the things I see a lot is folks who have these long-standing liabilities under 6672 of the Internal Revenue Code, and that is what I call trust fund responsible persons penalty, and those carry with folks many years, because when they run a business, if they haven't been dutiful and turned those deposits in, then they have a problem. And then the other thing that we're seeing is the W-2. If they haven't sent that W-2 over to the Social Security office and report all their deposits, then there could be a mismatch where where the government doesn't have a record of those deposits, and that's a problem because you want to have it in Social Security. You want your Social Security set aside for you. So folks are getting these forms every year telling them how much they should have taxes withheld. Well, that should match with their reality of how much they've worked. So it's interesting. Well, let's get back a little bit more to the immigration side. Have you had experience with the types of tax systems other countries have? And talk a little bit about our wonderful worldwide income approach versus some of the other countries that approach things with more of a territorial basis.
Yeah. In all honesty, I'm not that familiar. I'm not familiar at all with how other countries handle their tax situations. And when it comes to my immigration clients, and when it comes to taxes, whether they are here because of family, whether they're here because they're forming a business, I always tell them my first advice to them is make sure you find yourself a very good tax attorney, and I refer them to you because taxes are very important, and it's very important that you meet all your requirements, because throughout your immigration process it will come up. And they're very surprised also to find out that there is worldwide taxation. They're very surprised to find out that they can be taxed in the U.S. for income that they made outside of the
Right.
U.S. So I always tell them, particularly when they are looking to, come here, open a business, get their green card, and eventually get their citizenship, I'm like, talk to someone that can really explain to you what the tax consequences are so that you can really make the decision that is appropriate for you.
So, Evelyn, this gets me to the idea of consumer awareness. So if I go to and I don't want to name any names, but if I go to a place that might not have professionals there who are CPAs or people with experience in international tax, without that experience of knowing our tax system at that kind of level, then they might end up at a place like that. So from your comments, we want them to make sure they get to folks who have the prior experience working with folks from other countries, who have dealt with immigrants and this kind of thing. Is that right?
Yes, definitely. It's very important that the person that they go to, they vet them, and they make sure that that person has experience dealing with international clients, because not everyone does that. And I've even found out that even CPAs that are very good at what they do don't necessarily handle international related matters. They only deal with clients that are entirely domestic. So it's very important that they do go to someone that knows not just tax law, but tax law from an international taxpayer point of view.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I think we want to encourage folks out there to ask the right questions. One of the things that I think in the past I've not seen enough of is we want folks, when you go to a lawyer or an accountant, CPA, ask the questions. Ask, have you done this before? How many times have you done this before? Be a little bold in what you're asking, because it's too important not to get it right. And one of the things you're kind of talking on, one of the things that I know on these tax forms, Evelyn, that we are focused on are these yes/no questions. People think of taxes as, it's just my taxes. I turn them in and I pay the tax, or, my accountant figures it out. But it's a little bit more than that. A lot of these tax forms are very detailed in the data gathering process. And one of the things we're trying to do on Tufts on Tax is get the word out that folks really need to scrutinize the four corners of every part of their tax form, even though it's getting submitted electronically. So there are on some of these forms are a myriad of questions that if you answer one way and it's false, you can get in serious trouble. One example of that is foreign bank account. If you have some wealth here and you have foreign bank accounts that you have signature authority over, there's a yes/no type question that can come up. So folks have even gone to jail if they get that wrong, where they've said, no, I don't have any foreign bank account. And as you're talking about, these families that are interconnected by international relationships, they might have some wealth back in a country where their family is. And so we try and get that out. Well, now what is developing is Bitcoin and virtual currency. So I don't know if you've seen it yet, but of course we then can expect some of our clients that come to us. You might have clients who come to you that have that relationship. They need to know that there's a yes/no box on their tax form that says yes or no. Have you engaged in any trading in the virtual currency, Bitcoin and that kind of thing? So I just don't think folks realize that. So we're trying to get the word out. Any comment about foreign bank accounts or Bitcoin as far as what you've seen in immigration the last couple of years?
I have not had any experience yet with any client that has Bitcoins or any of that type of currency. When it comes to foreign bank accounts and anything of that matter, I always tell my clients, when you come to me and we're discussing immigration related matters, and then when you go to your tax professional, just make sure that you're very honest. This is the moment where with your attorney, your immigration attorney, your tax attorney, you tell them everything, because they will be able to then advise you. They will be able to tell you, help you make a decision that's going to be helpful for you. And if for someone, let's say, foreign taxation of foreign wealth is a big deal, then after talking to a tax attorney like you, they might decide that, maybe immigration is not their best bet. But it's important that they have these discussions before we go through the process. And that's why, like I said, I always tell them, you have to go talk to someone. You have to discuss all of this because it is going to be important. And it's better to make these decisions before we get into the process than once we're in and now you're, the government, you get that you get that letter from the IRS regarding, you didn't disclose all of your foreign assets or your foreign income or your foreign wealth, and people are just shocked. What do you mean I have to pay taxes on money that I made in Brazil, for example? I'm like, well, that's how it works.
So, you have to get out in front of that pretty quick so you can kind of curb their illusions, or maybe they don't understand that. You are international in what you do. I assume languages come up in different types. You're able to deal with that here at CPLS, different languages that come up in what we do? Yes,
we do have myself, I speak Spanish in addition to English, and then we have individuals that speak Portuguese, Arabic, French, so we have several different languages to help us, talk to our clients and be able to make sure that they understand us and we understand them so that we can help them make the right decisions.
One of the things I think about is I can tell pretty quick from clients that come see me, their kind of comfort. Does that make sense? In their culture a little bit. May not know their culture, but I can kind of start to pick up on that, especially those from this country, because they'll have misconceptions or whatever, about things. But in the international front, I grow to need that, and so I look to you folks to help me with how they're approaching things, because that can be quite varied. So I think that's awesome that we have that ability here. So when we look at helping folks, Evelyn, and we're trying to get them advice, they, of course, need to know that discussions with their attorney are privileged, right? So even in the considering us for engagement, those are privileged discussions as well. So from the interview process, deciding whether we can be of help to folks, those are privileged discussions. Correct?
Yes, that is correct. And that's why that is the moment for you to be very honest about everything, because it is all privileged. I can't share it with anyone else, but I can advise you as to what is the best course of action based on the information that you're providing me and based on what your goals are.
Awesome. And then kind of the last thing is, you reach out to other colleagues, different types of law that have specialties to help you in doing all of what you do, right? Because folks who have immigration issues can all suddenly have a legal issue that might deal with a specialty, and of course you bring them in if it's outside your expertise.
Oh yes, so I work with tax attorneys, I work with business attorneys, estate planning attorneys, family law attorneys. Every once in a while you might need a criminal defense attorney as well. But yes, I do reach out to make sure that when I advise my clients on an immigration-related matter, I take into consideration other areas of law that are also affected and that affect their immigration process.
Right. So one of the last things I want to cover is that so in our forms analysis, and part of what I do, we try and kind of indicate what forms are part of this data gathering process, but also lead to litigation. So folks are surprised that there are forms that essentially blow the whistle or tattletale or just simply protect their rear ends from a problem. So one of the examples we have is that if a tax return preparer goes to take advantage of someone, let's say because of language barrier or culture or otherwise, we've seen a lot of that, and you probably have heard of that, where accountants, maybe not CPAs, hopefully not CPAs, but I guess it could be, take advantage of folks who are from another country. And what can happen in those situations is they can be told that you can get a refund, of monies taken from you, but yet not realize that they're being scammed. And so there are forms that can disclose that and get them on the right side of that, meaning they didn't know, they were taking advantage of it. Once someone looks at their tax return and realizes that it doesn't add up. So any comment about dealing with folks in immigration on that front, as far as what can they do for your clients to kind of have their eyes wide open in consumer matters like that?
Okay. The first thing I would say is definitely go to a CPA or a tax attorney. Obviously, it might be a little bit more expensive than some of the other providers, but you will get the best outcome. Usually, a CPA, a tax attorney, they are going to be very careful to make sure that everything is done properly, that all the information that is submitted is correct. Also make sure that, if you see anything in your, tax return that doesn't seem to add up to you, ask questions as to why is that information being placed there. Avoid head of household. And I say this because it comes up a lot. They go to some tax preparer and they always place people as head of household because I guess it might mean a bigger refund for them. But for immigration purposes, it's not well received. If you are a married couple, even if one of the spouses is undocumented, for you to use the head of household classification. You should be using the married, either filing jointly or filing separately. But definitely try to avoid, if someone is telling you head of household and you're still married and you're living with your spouse, that is a concern, and it has been brought up.
Interesting. That's very interesting because, we talk a lot about the estate tax also being this large exemption for, U.S. citizens for the amount of tax they pay. But for non-citizens, they only have like a $60,000 coverage. So they're going to get into our estate tax pretty quick. And so if they marry here or they're here, they can find themselves facing a pretty significant estate tax. So it's all important that they get to the right professionals. Well, Evelyn, I have very much enjoyed our time today. Any other comments or thoughts about taxes and then your practice and the impact of it?
I just going to say what I always tell my clients. Go to a tax professional, a CPA, a tax attorney. I know a lot of times when people file taxes, they're concerned about the biggest refund. When you're going through the immigration process, you should be concerned about making sure that your taxes are entirely correct and that there's nothing wrong with them, because the immigration officers and the judges, if you're in front of a judge, they will look at them and they do ask questions about them. So that is very, very, very important.
Awesome. And now I know you're not a stranger to the world of I don't want to say podcasts, but getting videos out and things on some areas that are important to you to get the word out. Touch just briefly on what's out there on our CPLS site that you've gotten topics out there on that you have done.
I have a few videos and blogs on immigration, on the impact of crime on immigration. I have a few of those because I do think it's very important for people to understand how those two work and how even things that might seem not that big can actually have a huge impact on someone's immigration status. And I think I also have a few other videos probably just on the immigration process in general.
Oh, that's awesome. So for our listeners, Tufts on Tax here, you have any kind of issue with immigration or the areas that, bankruptcy and whatnot that Evelyn works in, please come, reach out to her, get to talk to someone like her. And Evelyn in particular, just a great disposition. I think these difficult issues are tough enough. If you have an attorney that's not easy to talk to and work with and who's also got the years of experience, I think that can be difficult. I can tell you that Evelyn has that kind of great disposition and good temperament, and I think that's very important. And of course, the expertise to handle your issues. So we look forward to talking to you again, Evelyn, and it's been my honor to talk to you. So
Thank you for having me. I actually had a really good time.
awesome. All right, we'll see you again on Tufts on Tax, and we'll be back.
Hello, folks. We're back again, and what a great interview with Miss Pabon Figueroa. You guys covered a lot of things, I thought, regarding bankruptcy and also immigration.
Yeah,
mainly.
great time with Evelyn, and this is kind of the goal of our interview segment. And so, looking forward to having other folks come join us.
Yes, absolutely. More attorneys will have interviews with them and see how taxes will impact their practice. Folks, you can always call us on the number on the screen at 877-647-7887, or you can visit our website, cplspa.com, or you can email Mr. T. Scott Tufts at stufts@cplspa.com. That's stufts, STUFTS at cplspa.com. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day. Until next time.